This graphics card cost me only $25, but can it still play modern games in 2023? Let's go over what this card is, how I got it, and what it can do. In today's tech climate, $25 can't really buy you much. You can get an okay budget keyboard, a pretty good gaming mouse, but when it comes to actual PC hardware, there are slim pickings at that price. So obviously I had to pick something used. This GPU kind of fell in my lap due to a fire sale that CyberPower was having. CyberPower is a company that mainly focuses on pre-built computers, but they occasionally sell refurbished graphics cards for the same or slightly more than you can find on eBay. But they not only come with a 30-day return window, they come with a 90-day warranty in case anything ends up being defective. Last week, CyberPower was selling some AMD GPUs, namely the 5700 XT, the RX560, and the RX580 for some insanely low prices, even compared to eBay or local sellers. The RX560 was being sold for only $25, and that included free shipping. I rolled the dice and decided to order one. My RX560 arrived in literally 2 days, really well packaged in its original box, and even with the peel still on the card. CyberPower did say they refurbished this item, so it's nice that they made the card look literally brand new. I was really very impressed for only 25 bucks, but okay, let's talk about the card. This is the RX560 from HIS. It was originally released in 2017 and was targeted at a budget buyer even when new. The variant I have purchased has only 2 gigs of VRAM, but it was also released in a 4 gig VRAM configuration. My card has a single fan and requires no external PCIe power. And check out that lion! That is a cool ass lion, man. But what is this company? His? Why not hers? After doing some research, I learned that HIS is a Hong Kong-based GPU manufacturer that only does AMD cards. But check out their website, holy crap. How is this the website of a company that was capable of making a video card? The copyright on the page is from 2008, so it's very likely they haven't updated the initial design since then, and 15 years is a very long time when it comes to website design. Well, I hope they make graphics cards better than they make websites. When it comes to testing graphics cards, I feel like most YouTubers like to pick the strongest CPU they have to avoid any possibility of a bottleneck, and it gives the GPU the best chance. And I get that, really. But I wanted to pick something that someone who would buy a $25 graphics card would probably use with it in the real world to see some real world results. Also because I already had it on hand. You might have seen my video about making a $200 gaming PC from last month, and so I'm going to be using the base of that PC to test this card. This is the Dell Optiplex 3020. I've upgraded the CPU to a Xeon 1245V3, which is a 4-core 8-thread CPU that is very similar to an i7-4770. The RAM is 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM, which is running at 1866 megatransfers per second. Got a small SSD in there and the standard 290 watt Dell power supply. The RX560 draws very little power, and at max gaming potential, this power supply is more than enough. This could be an awesome little gaming PC for just over $100 if you are someone who is in the market for an extreme budget gaming PC. Okay, so with a $25 graphics card and only 2 gigs of VRAM, I'm not expecting much. I'm going to temper my expectations and be happy if I can at least play some esports titles at 1080p. But if I can play some AAA games at playable frame rates, I'd be very impressed. Let's play some games. First up, let's run a classic, the old Grand Theft Auto 5 Benchmark. 1080p, VSync off, high settings, and this is running great. It's no surprise considering this game came out 4 years before the graphics card, but it's still relevant today, so it's worth testing. The average frame rate during this benchmark was around 64 FPS. 1080p 60 FPS is the baseline standard for budget gaming in my opinion, so let's see if we can keep this going. The Hitman 3 benchmark did not fare as well. At 1080p low settings, I was only able to average around 25 FPS throughout the entire benchmark. I lowered the resolution to 720p and was able to get around 40 FPS on average. I think it's still playable at that frame rate because Hitman 3 is more of a slow and methodical game, so you might not notice a slightly lower frame rate, but this is definitely an L for the RX560. Ghostrunner, an incredibly fast-paced and exciting game that looks incredible, did much better than Hitman. 1080p with everything on epic settings was able to average around 60 FPS throughout my entire testing run. It dipped a little bit when there were many enemies and particles on the screen. It dipped a little bit when there were many enemies and particles on the screen, but overall, I think if you ran this game on high or medium, you'd be well over 70 FPS average, which is a big win for this $25 graphics card. Sons of the Forest came out within the last 30 days, so I wanted to see how it ran on this card. The game looks great normally, but being in early access and not a huge AAA game, it might not be highly optimized for lower end graphics cards. Yikes, this was painful. Sure, I was able to average 20 FPS on 1080p, but look at those 1% lows. Every 10 seconds the game would stutter and drop all frames for a moment, making this game almost unplayable just walking around. I dropped the resolution to 720p to see if we could do better, and while yes, the average FPS and 1% lows were much improved, the game still looked like ass, and calling 35 FPS at 720 a win for a game released in 2023 is not something I want to do. Take this L and do better. Counter-Strike Global Offensive is 10 years old at this point, but it's a staple benchmarker for some reason. At 1080p and everything on high, I was able to play a standard game with no stutters and able to sustain an average frame rate of around 100 FPS. As expected, this card is perfect for esports games and will allow you to play something like this without any issues and even at an elevated frame rate. Good job. CSGO did so well, I wanted to try League of Legends, a game released a long time ago, but is still played by millions of people every day. I jumped into an ARAM match at 1080p and woo, look at that frame rate. When I wasn't dead, we averaged around 145 FPS during gameplay, which is to be expected. You can finally max out that 144Hz 1080p monitor you bought a few years ago. Nothing surprising here, the game looks and plays well, and if you didn't tell me I was on a $100 PC, there's probably no way I would be able to tell. While you play as League of Legends, you're in the clear. And since I'm a glutton for punishment and like to be stepped on, I wanted to try Elden Ring. But after booting the game up, I was actually kicked out for having such a shitty computer. Look at that. They don't allow you to play the game online if your FPS is too low. Then they poor shame you with this message. I switched to offline mode and rebooted the game and wow, this is not great. You might think I'm slowing the video down, but this is real time what it looks like. Playing at 1080p with 15 FPS and off the chart 1% lows, I don't know about you, but this to me is unplayable, no matter how cheap the GPU is. I dropped the resolution to 720p and was able to get around 22 FPS, which might be playable if you're really desperate, but I'm gonna uninstall this game and never think about it ever again. Last up is the baby game for babies, Fortnite. Fortnite, which is still extremely popular. I ran it at 1080p with medium settings and I pwned some random kitties and was able to average around 120 FPS throughout the entire match. This was also to be expected, as Fortnite is another one of those esports titles that could play on anything. I didn't test Valorant, but I'd assume we would see similar performance in that game. Any of these colorful esports titles will play just fine at a high frame rate on this $25 graphics card. The RX560 certainly surprised me. I was fully expecting to be able to simply play esports titles like League of Legends, but I was able to play some newer games at respectable frame rates. No, you're not going to be doing 4K 120 or cranking 90s or whatever, but if you just want to play PC games with your friends and literally have almost no money, then the RX560 is a more than capable card. But we need to talk about the elephant in the room, the price. And while yes, I was able to get this card for $25 on a fire sale, this card is available on eBay right now for around $50 to $60 after shipping. And at that price, I don't really think this card is worth it. For that price, you could find an RX580 with 8 gigs of VRAM locally or get lucky online. Alternatively, you could spend a little more and grab a GTX 1060 or 1070. But if you come across a good sale and you find an RX560 for $25 or $35, it might be worth picking up. Or alternatively, you could just buy a Steam Deck, and that'd be cool, because I make a lot of Steam Deck content. And that means you could, I don't know, subscribe to my channel and like stick around and watch cool gaming PC or Steam Deck content, and we could like be friends. So you could like this video, you could also comment your best budget gaming PC pickup, and you could, I don't know, subscribe to the channel. My name is Jason. Thanks for watching.